Good evening, everyone.
Evening. It's a late one, so please disregard the excess vocal fry that you may hear tonight. And we're back with another episode of 90s Noise. I'm April, have had a green thumb since 1991.
And Ashley. I don't know what I've had since 1988. You threw me in
All
for a
right.
loop there.
I could tell. So this week we are discussing a few underrated animated movies. And yeah, we've
Very
got three in our
underrated.
yeah, we've got three in our lineup here tonight that we are going to be chatting about. Um, First up, we are going to go with the retelling of Hans Christian Andersen's classic fairy tale of Thumbelina. So,
Thumbelina. So, have you, okay. Have, did you watch this as a kid? Like, did you watch any of these as a
I
kid?
did. Okay, yes, I did. I did.
Really?
Really, absolutely, I watched these.
So how did you like find them? Like, because they're not the big animated productions that I felt like were thrown in your face like all the Disney ones. You know what I mean? Like these were all obviously underrated. They weren't as
Mhm.
widely known. Like I don't know. I'm very curious because I don't know that I ever saw any of these.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Like I was like,
Oh
okay,
my
like
goodness.
I feel like Thumbelina, okay, like I know I kind of have an idea of what that story may be like. Oh, Swan Princess, maybe Troll, I definitely knew. No, I hadn't seen that, but after
Oh,
rewatching all of them, girl, I cannot remember ever seeing any of these. I don't know. It's wild.
wow. Okay. Oh, shit. So all three of these were ones that we had recorded when they were on TV
Mm,
because we had the VHS,
okay.
we had the little like stickers that
Yeah.
they used to where you could write what it was. And I remember Swan Princess, like I still remember like the writing. Swan Princess, Troll in Central Park, and Thumbelina.
Those old tapes, like if you still have those, like it would be so fun to watch those because they would have like the commercials and shit on those. That would be so fun to see.
So what we would always do, what my mom would always try to do is stop,
Oh, she would
like
pause
pause
it.
the recording
Oh.
and try to get it like try to time it right. So you always miss that first like 30 seconds when it came back on. But no, I I we don't still have them because my brother went through a phase where he was going crazy like recording I think it was Dawson's Creek and was just pulling random like all of the different tapes and recording over shit and
Oh
everything. Oh, I was
no. Oh fuck.
furious. Furious because like I had taken a handful of the tapes and put them in my room because I was watching all that kind of stuff and he'd gone into my room and taken some of like to find some. I was like, what? I was like, where the
Ooh.
fuck is this? Well, obviously I didn't say it that way because I
Yeah,
was like
right.
I was I was still like a preteen or whatever. Yeah, that because I do remember just like the recording of it, like the
hmm
quality wasn't the greatest. So yeah, I do remember watching these growing up. The Melina, not so much. And this so we watched it, what you watched it on YouTube, right? Also?
Yeah. Which wasn't a bad quality. I felt like the quality of
It
it
was
wasn't bad, to be honest.
it was a decent quality. It did drive me crazy that some songs were muted, at least the one that I was watching, some were muted and some weren't.
Yeah, there was one version of it where they were having some songs like that, but then I did find another one where they were all in there, so it didn't really make sense why someone had done that
Hmm.
because I thought, oh, it was like a copyright thing, they couldn't. But then I found
Yeah.
another version where they were all in it, and I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. So
Yeah,
that
and it's
was like, I'm not doing this again, people.
yeah, it's not like it skipped the song entirely. Like it's just you just had like few minutes of dead
Nothing.
air and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah.
And that was kind of annoying to me.
Yeah.
But what was your take on Thumbelina?
So Thumbelina is she is like the damsel in distress, the one that we hate. You know, like the this just you're just like from the get-go, like what is
Oh
happening?
my
Like what is she
gosh.
doing? Like
Yes.
girl, like you literally were just born, if we want to like call it that, and all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden your main focus is, oh, I have to find my little fairy prince love, and it's like, girl, like what are you doing? Like
That plus the this movie would not be made today. Like this movie would be so canceled
you think? Why?
because of how I like even I was like cringing at some of these parts with Thumbelina and oh I'm gonna marry her. I'm gonna marry her.
Hmm.
And
Everyone
oh
was
like
obsessed with
everybody
marrying
like
her.
marrying her, all this kind of stuff. I
Ah,
do not think this movie would be made with this script. This wouldn't I don't think it would be made today. I
yeah,
don't
they
think it
would.
would I don't think it would get past Gen Z.
Yeah,
Gen
they
Z
would
would
have to
cancel the shit out
do
of
a lot
this.
of reworking, even though like that is basically the fairy tale. Like, I mean, they weren't
Mm,
like tr really changing the fairy tale much. That's what it was about, just like this girl
mm.
going about like and all these different characters wanting to marry her. But yeah, it just for a kids movie, I didn't think there were really any redeeming qualities for Thumbelina at all. Like
No.
she literally was like this pathetic, desperate girl who really couldn't stand on her own, who didn't know really anything, and the only thing she was worried about is she literally just met this guy, and now it's like, oh, I have to find him. I have to. Oh, he's my true love, and that's the only way I'm gonna like survive in life. And it's like, well, you don't
Yeah,
even know what life is. So,
exactly. Like she had good voice, which was like sirening all of these people, creatures, whatever you want to call them. And I mean, because that's even how the prince first
right.
saw her was he heard her voice. And it just was so hard for me to watch. And I kid you not, like I was watching, I'm like, this is, I don't think this was one that I was super into growing up
Mhm.
because I'll be completely honest, I wasn't into a lot of the princessy damsel in distress
Right.
type things. Most of my favorite stuff were more animal based,
Hmm.
honestly.
Hmm. This one had animals, but like all the animals were just, they were
It
just
wasn't,
evil. They were just trying, like, marry her, or they weren't really trying
yeah.
to help her out in any way. Like they were just like the bird guy, like he just seemed useless because instead
Hmm.
of allowing her, like he knew what she was trying to do, find the prince, instead of like, oh, hop on my back,
Hop
we'll go
on.
fly away. And he
Yeah.
was just like, all right, peace out, have fun here. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
go see what I
I'll go,
can do.
yeah, I'll go find
Like
this
this
prince or whatever. It's like,
tiny
what the?
little person, you're just like, it's like seriously, like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, it was really hard to really,
Yeah,
to
I
really
think
get into that
the
all.
only the only thing that kind of kept my attention on it was the fact that like you had Jodie Benson and you had
Hmm.
Gilbert Gottfried, like some bigger names like voicing that you were kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, like I know those voices. This is kind of piquing my interest. Like I want to kind of see what they're doing with this. That was really the only thing that I was only reason why I was willing to like keep watching it because I did have
Yeah.
to like gather my thoughts and stuff and be like, okay, can I get through this movie without being like wanting to shake Thumbelina and be like, girl, like I mean none of the characters, I'm gonna be honest, the only character I liked was the dog. Like he was the
I
only
know.
one and he couldn't
What
talk,
was
of
his
course.
name?
And you're like, what
Hero
the
or something?
and they wouldn't let him talk. So it was again, you're kind of like a play on Little Mermaid where the dog couldn't talk but
Mhm.
yet all the other characters could, all the other animals, and it's like, what about the fucking dog? Like, why
Yeah.
are we like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that was a very frustrating movie. And like the prince, I just didn't, I don't know, I didn't like him. Like I just didn't think he
Mhm.
was anything special. And then at the end, they get married, but then all of a sudden she has wings. Like she became a fairy because they got married. Like how does that
Yeah.
work? Like how
Yeah.
does
It was just so unrealistic, like didn't even really have like an ounce of anything that you could. I mean, what was the moral? I mean, where's the moral of the story?
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out. Like I know there was all about like I know she eventually what she refused like eventually told the mole like no she's not going to get married to him. That was the only part where I felt like she finally said something and was like but she almost went through with it. So you're almost like, well,
Yeah,
girl, like, come on, figure it out. Like, what are you doing?
exactly. That's yeah,
And
no,
then
I
like the kidnapping, like she was
yes,
kidnapped. Like,
pretty much what? So in a sense, probably what, like three times?
yeah,
Kidnapped by the frogs, kidnapped by the beetle, and honestly kidnapped by the mouse too.
yeah,
I mean, she did save her, but then she locked her in.
right. Exactly. She was very like gullible because they like said things to her and she was like, okay, like, all right, oh, like
Hmm.
they're like, oh, he's dead. Oh, okay, I guess I'll give up. And oh well, like I'll just die here. And it's like,
They're
so
like,
you're not gonna go back home to your mom? Like you didn't care about her?
exactly.
So I was so like,
Yeah.
Thumbelina, someone needs to shake you.
Hmm.
That that one was that one was very frustrating. Like I just
That was. And honestly, I think we're gonna go ahead and transition into the next one, which actually so just looking at some of these nice little trivia tidbits for these movies. So this actually ties in well. So both Thumbelina and A Troll in Central Park were in production simultaneously at Bluth. I don't know how I you all know how horrendous I am about pronunciations, especially when it's not a Midwest American. So Don Bluth.
they know who
Oh,
you're talking about.
yeah. Studios in Ireland. Initially, Troll was to be released first, followed by Thumbelina, but it was then decided to release Thumbelina first, as it was pre-sold commodity given its origins as a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale. That may be the only redeeming quality of that movie. So, on that note, I think we're transitioning into A Troll in Central Park. You hadn't seen this? I'm
I
really
never even
surprised about
heard of
that one
it.
too.
Like I had heard of
Oh,
Thumbelina, I heard of Swan Princess, but until you had mentioned like a troll in Central Park, I had to look it up because I thought you were talking about like a more modern movie. And then I was like, oh, what? This came out in 94. What the fuck is this?
oh my gosh. I really enjoyed this movie. And I even still enjoyed it rewatching it.
Really?
Yeah. Well, for me, I don't know, like I said, I think it was partially the fact that it really wasn't a princessy type movie.
Yeah.
It was different. It
Right.
was definitely different, and I definitely feel this is a very underrated 94 movie. Like you said, probably very few people even know what the fuck it is. But yes, this is one that I enjoyed, I liked, and I love the different voices. There's so many people in this that, well, I mean, the main cast members are ones that you've heard from other movies.
Like who?
Okay, so the guy who played Stanley, Dom Del DeLuise, I think is how it's pronounced. He was Itchy in All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Itchy.
Do you remember?
I have not seen, that
Oh,
movie is not one that you like. I love that movie, but I don't feel like I've rewatched it because it's so sad. Like you don't like
I
You
know.
don't just put it on, just be like, oh, let's just put this one on. Like you've got to be ready for that one emotionally.
Yeah. So that was like a big one for me for him. He was in like an episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. He did a lot of like single episodes. You would probably like his voice, I'm sure, is something that you recognize, like if you put it together. Did you ever watch American Tail by Folk Goes West?
Possibly. I know it's like a very well-known like book
Hmm.
and stuff, and but I don't know. I'd have
He
to
was
revisit
also,
it.
yeah, he was also one of the voices in that. And so that was Stanley. Ganora. We just this is actually how I remembered about Troll was we literally just watched the voice of Ganora,
Mm-hmm.
Cloris Leachman.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean
Yeah,
she's
she's very recognizable in that role. Like
yeah.
easily, yeah.
There was her sidekick guy was also did a voice in All Dogs Go to Heaven also. There's also another little cameo in a sense. Hillary, the character of Hillary, which if I remember correctly, Hillary is, I believe, the mom. The mom was Haley Mills.
Yeah, the British parents with the American kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, we heard that.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so there's a lot of different voice actors, people who voiced different characters that
Well, and that's the thing when I was looking that up is like with Thumbelina and Troll, they both had some pretty well-known voice
mm,
actors, and it's crazy that the neither of the movies did well at like at all. Like they bombed in the
no,
box
they
office.
did.
Like they did nothing. So it's wild that they were a part of this production. Like, and I get it, like Don did a lot of other movies like you named, All Dogs Go to Heaven, all those that you named. Plus, I think he was a part of Disney, if I'm not mistaken, before all that. Like, or
I think so.
so like I understand how that all works, but it's insane that movies that get made and they spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on making these movies and the years that go into it, and then they come out and like they don't do anything. But it's so hard. Like we talked about this before. Like when you have another type of animated movie from another production going up against a Disney anime, you cannot compete with that. No matter how good the fucking movie is, you just can't compete with it. Like there's just no way. And you do wonder how these movies would have done if there were no other movies of Disney being released in 94. But I mean, they were going up with The Lion King. I mean, so many other great movies that year that it's just like, how can you even like what are they supposed to do?
I completely agree. Like this, it's one of those things where these are the movies that you see people doing the do you remember this movie or I just unlocked a
Mm,
a memory or something like that because they didn't necessarily make a huge impact, but a lot of people watched them. Still, whether it was you actually did go end up going to the theater to see it, or you just it happened across it with your family one night on TV. And I think that's what happened with a lot of people was these were movies that were on not on Disney.
hmm.
So not on like ABC. They were on a different station. And so parents, I think, also kind of were like, okay, we're not watching a Disney one. Let's give it a shot. Like, because as parents, like you kind of get a little tired of the same continuous Disney movies. Because if you line up, okay, if you line up most of the princess Disney movies,
Hmm.
their storylines are so similar. I mean,
Right.
there's a girl who falls in love with a prince, and then
Hmm.
there's an evil witch who does something that splits them apart, and the prince has to come and save her, blah blah blah. Like, I mean,
Yeah, it's
that's
all
like that's like
very
10 of the Disney princess
cut and
movies right there.
paste. Yeah.
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 And so it was something different for families. I think TV, like, actually playing on syndicate TV and just, TV in general was probably the saving grace in a sense and what
Hmm.
allowed people to really see these movies.
Yeah, and I think like you said with the troll, I mean, it is very like outside of the box, like for a
Mhm,
kid's animation. Like it's not about the typical princess prince type storyline. And I think for that movie, that's honestly it's really its only redeeming quality is that it's different.
yeah,
I personally had a hard time with this movie. Didn't I can't say that this is one that I liked or I'll plan on rewatching. The I think what was hard for me is that the kids were so freaking annoying. Like I just
mhm,
they were so obnoxious. And the just like the concept of the trolls, like this the way it started, I guess it was a little bit confusing as to
mhm,
what they were doing with it, where they were going, because like I I guess we had to have this assumption that all the trolls were bad. Like, and the only association I have with trolls, like if I was watching it as a kid, is obviously those little like troll dolls that, were super
mhm,
huge, like in the late 80s, early 90s that my sister was obsessed with and collected. So like with the crazy hair, like
yeah,
that's what I know with trolls. So then like you have this movie about trolls, so you're kind of thinking, oh, is it going to be like that? But no, they're supposed to be like a very boring world where you can't have any fun and color and like excitement. It's just like we're bad trolls, we're bad. I'm just like, what? Like, where is this movie
yeah.
going? Like, I was so disappointed with how it like started.
It could have used a little bit of polishing and kind of a little bit more of a backstory just to kind of even just like 5 minutes of a little bit more of a backstory
Right.
on it where which it's funny you mentioned that, like, because when I think of troll, I don't yes, part of one thing that does pop up are those toys
Hmm.
from the 80s and 90s, but when I think of troll, I think of more like the mythical, like, in the or like the what was it, the troll under the bridge or something, like there's this oh
I think
gosh,
I know what you're talking about. There is
the story
something
about
like,
like the one, like, it's like keeping people from crossing a bridge
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
comes to mind for
That's true. I
me
forgot about that.
is something more like that, where in past fairy tales and books that have read, the troll has been a mean, ugly
Yeah.
creature and everything. And I mean, as kids, I don't know if you ever, I mean, I never was personally called one, but like I'd hear kids call other kids like a troll. Like,
Really?
you look like a troll. And
I don't
like, yeah.
I don't know if I heard
And
that,
so
but that's
and
funny.
so that's and it was always kind of it was a degrading
Right.
comment. And so that's why I guess maybe for me it was already my concept of trolls were bad, evil, whatever. And so it kind of made sense that there was, oh, okay, so there's a good troll. There's a nice troll. Not
Right.
all trolls are bad
Yeah, there's
type of deal. So,
that one Stanley who like just
mhm.
doesn't shut up though, because he's just way too like he's way too cheerful. He's way too like and like the whole movie he's just like and you're like, okay, Stanley, chill the fuck out. But it's funny with like Ganora. Did you get the resemblance to like she was Ursula? Like she was like a Ursula
A
knockoff.
little bit,
Like
yeah.
that was my first impression. I'm like, okay, so this is an Ursula knockoff. Okay,
A
cool.
little bit, yeah. Yeah. I think also probably part of my the why I was drawn to this movie growing up was because of Rosie, the little girl.
That was my thought when I'm like, oh, I wonder if April connects with Rose. That's literally what I thought.
Well, because at that time I would have been about that age
Hmm.
and everything, and you don't see you really don't you'll see like toddlers or babies as like side characters, not
Hmm.
really as a focus, unless it's like a really toddlery show or
Right.
something. But as a more family-friendly movie, you just don't see that very often. And so, yes, Rosie was one that I was drawn to. And it was funny because I was watching it and I'm at the beginning, I completely forgot about the beginning. I'm like, "Do I even really remember this movie?" And then as soon as Rosie came on, I was like, "Yes, I do. I do remember this movie."
Did you feel like her brother, like as bratty and annoying as he was there any resemblance to like how your brothers were, or was that just not at all how they were with you or anything? Because he was kind of like
No,
annoying, oh, no one I don't ever get to do what I want to do, like just such a brat in the beginning, like kicking his toys and yelling at his dad basically, and it's like, what the hell?
not to my knowledge. I don't think my brothers were to that extreme if they were at all. And we were I mean, my parents raised us like pretty much very, I don't know if humble necessarily is the right
Hmm.
word for it, but I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously, as kids, everybody goes through like temper tantrums and stuff like that because as children, you just don't, you really don't know how to express how you feel. Whereas, like, as an adult, you could say, hey, I don't like that, or hey, I'm not
Hmm.
this is how I feel right now. And as kids, you really don't have the capability of truly expressing in a way that can be talked about, I guess. And so you get like that built up like anger or sadness or whatever, and then it just comes out as a temper tantrum or some kind of tantrum. And so I'm sure there was times I know I had some myself. I'm sure there's times my brothers did, but it wasn't I don't recall like any specific instances where any of us truly were like acting like he did. And maybe it's just because that us acting like that would have been so long ago that those, the memories just hard to remember on that.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
And of course, those wouldn't have been like a good memory. So
No.
I probably threw those out to make room for something else. What about you? What about, did you or your sister really ever do much of that?
That specifically, I don't know. I mean, I know like we were both probably pretty bratty at times. Like, I'm sure we were not the most pleasant of kids at times. And like you said, that's just part of growing up and how kids typically are. But I think having parents raise you well and discipline you in the right process because in the right way, because like I don't feel like kids get disciplined nowadays like
Mm-hmm.
how we were in the 90s. Like we were shown the belt and like
Well, that's the thing, like, that's why I don't think I just truly don't remember any of that because I think what it was for us was, like, it happened one time, we were disciplined, and we learned.
there is this like meme, or it's not really a meme, but it was like one of those, you know how they do all those like video reenactments and like they have like
Mhm.
kind of like type things. There was one that I saw recently. I don't think I sent it to you because I really don't know like your family household and if it was something you associated with, so I didn't want to be like, calling like anyone out on it. But it was like with
Just for future reference, send them to me.
I
I'm
know,
not gonna
okay.
take it personally.
Okay. So like
I'll probably be like, "Oh, that totally is true," or, not really," but just I mean, you've seen what I mean, you see what I send you. I just it's one of those, "Oh my god, this is great." So, just for
so
future reference, send them.
okay, will do. But like did you guys have like a reclining chair, with like where it reclined out and you had the foot thing? So did you like your dad like was he sitting in the chair and something going on and like you were getting in trouble and your dad like you when you heard your dad like slam you knew like shit was going down.
Yes.
Yes, that's what they posted. I'm like,
Yes.
oh my God, the memory's coming back. Like everyone better
Yes.
get it
Oh
together
my
because
gosh.
dad is pissed.
Yes.
That recliner's coming down. He's getting up.
Oh yes. Because I mean my dad, it would take a lot for him to get pissed.
Exactly. Yes. Hmm.
And so you knew if he got involved, you were like that. No, that wasn't good. But I mean, I think that's how it was a lot for a lot of families in like 90s and before, is that for the most part, just the typical way families were. The mom kind of did more of the everyday
Hmm.
disciplining.
Yeah.
And then because dad was at work and mom was taking care of the kids and everything. It was kind of that, in a sense, that 50s vibe, and
Hmm.
almost then like when dad would have to get involved with something, you knew, you
Dad's getting the
knew.
belt. Dad's
Yeah.
getting up.
It's like, so like I said, I think probably it was one or two times of those temper tantrums. And then it was, you knew better.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh,
But okay, so what did you think on for Troll how the brother gets turned into a troll and then turns into having a green thumb?
yeah, that part was a little confusing, if I'm gonna be honest, because like obviously the trolls have powers, and so whatever. Like the fact that Ganora even sent him to a park with no expectations that there would be anything fun for Stanley to do was, oh, that was a bad move. But
Well, so it wasn't that it was necessarily realizing it was a park. It was he was going to New York City. And it just so happened that there's Central
right,
Park,
yeah,
and because that was what the thought process of the sidekick was, oh, New York is all
supposed to be,
buildings
yes,
and everything. There
yes.
is no green.
Yes.
And
But he
so
happened to be in Central Park, so it worked out for
yeah.
him.
Yeah, it
But
worked. Absolutely.
yeah, it was a very interesting moment when like you think Rosie's dead, like she's fallen, like you think she's gonna die, and then like the
Mhm.
boy is turning into a troll, and then he has powers, but then like it doesn't really make sense because they defeat her and he turns back into a boy, but then he still has the magic thumb. Like how does, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was cool in the end to kind of have that little reveal, but you're also kind of like, well, why does he still have that? Like, like,
Well, because remember he was like, I want to be able to have a green thumb. And
okay, but you
like
don't get
when
everything that you want.
well, it's a fucking movie. Of course you do.
And the parents are so fucking oblivious too. They're just like, la
Oh my
di
gosh.
da, la di da.
Oh yeah, the babysitter said that it sounded like they were so quiet it was like they weren't even there. No shit. Like
Yeah.
hire yourself a different babysitter.
Yeah, she was not good.
Oh my gosh. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think the babysitter was actually who Haley Mills voiced. Because I think it
The
was the
babysitter didn't talk, did she?
I think she had like a couple lines, a
No,
couple
I
small
think
lines.
she was the mom. Like if because I remember
Was
looking at the cast, it was her and that guy, and they're both Jonathan Price, I think, and they're both British because the
well,
um the babysitter was, or I don't even, she was more of a housekeeper, and she was
uh,
kind of stereotyped as like Latino or Latina.
mm.
So and
Oh, that's
how it
right. Well,
is.
yeah, because okay, yeah. So I'm see, this is what happens when we do these late. Like I start second guessing myself. Yeah, no, and then yeah, Jonathan Price was also is also a big name too. I mean, Glenn Ross. I mean, fuck, like that's another big thing. I hate when like it doesn't actually like you don't hear their names. And
Right.
animation does this a lot, where there will be characters that you don't ever hear their names.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you go like on IMDb or
You're supposed to
Wikipedia,
just know who it is.
yeah, like if you're like looking to see who the fuck it was, because I'm one of those people that if I hear a voice, especially with animations, because I can't see a face, if I hear a voice and I'm thinking, and I will spend 98% of the entire movie going, who the fuck is that? Where else have I fucking heard them before?
That's why I automatically open up like the cast list because I want to know. Like I need
I
to
do
know.
too. And it drives me crazy when like I'm like, I don't know what their freaking character's name is
Right.
because it's not been
They don't,
mentioned
yeah.
in the hour and a half movie. So I just gotta freaking go through and figure out who actually like go through every single, okay, it's a female voice. Okay, so I'm not gonna go through the males, obviously. All right, just go down the line. Okay, it wasn't this person, it wasn't this person, then maybe this person. Yeah, there's my rant for tonight.
So then at the end, when he like uses his magic thumb and now like New York is basically being invaded by all this greenery, like can you imagine like if that were, I mean, New York does need some greenery, yes, but
Hmm.
girl, that was a lot. They're gonna be suffocated. I don't know if they're all alive.
Yeah.
That was kind of
No,
hysterical.
it had its moments, that's for sure. The movie. It did. It was I understand, especially like since you hadn't seen it before, hadn't even heard of it before, I definitely understand where you're coming from. It's one of those where it was just, am I gonna probably watch it again anytime soon? Probably not. But it was nice to go back down that trip down memory lane and
Yeah.
rewatch it and just be like, oh my gosh, I remember like going through trying to find the VHS that had that because I don't know why my mom would do this, but she would write most of them in freaking pencil. And
Oh,
so it would like rub off or be like so light you could barely read it. And sometimes they weren't even labeled. It was like, okay, what's this?
well,
Oh,
we're just
not
gonna
that.
put it in
That's
and
not what.
see.
Yeah. So no, it was like I said, I enjoyed rewatching it. But I'll probably go another 20 plus years without seeing it again. So I think we're down to our third and final, and probably the most well known of our underrated movies that we're discussing today. This is the 1994 movie of a power hungry sorcerer who's cursing a princess to live as a swan by day in this tale of everlasting love. So, this also, I think, is probably one that has the most sequels, also.
I saw that. Like that is insane. Like they just kept going. Like,
Mm-hmm.
did you watch any other Swan
No,
Princess versions?
no,
Because like I'm
no.
very curious as to like what else did they have to say and do? Like what?
Yeah. Well, so I think I'd seen because I believe I don't think I ever watched any of the other Swan Princess movies. But they also did a TV show, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
I'm just, I guess I'm, let
Like
me,
it's just it's weird to like continue with the story, fairy tale,
hmm.
whatever, Swan Princess when like they already like conquered the villain that turned her into a swan in the first one. So like she's no longer a swan anymore. So like she's
Well,
like what
yeah, and
like it's just like what's
that's
happening? Is it
that's the thing with me. Like, so like I was, yeah, was there? Because there was I can't remember if it was actually a TV show or if it was the second one that I just happened to like happen across or something. And she's a swan again.
oh
And
God, no, we're not doing that.
I'm
Mm-mm.
like, no, like how the fuck is that supposed to work? Because like you said,
That's weird.
she got she got saved. So how her wedding was during the freaking day. Like it's not like they waited until the moonlight.
Yeah, I have no idea. That's really weird. I think the only thing that I can associate with the Swan Princess that I feel like with the story and stuff is Black Swan. Like I love that movie. So I like that adaptation of it, which is obviously like not a kids movie, but
Never
I
seen it
like
actually.
I like the premise of like Swan Lake and that ballet, and I think that
Mhm.
is just one of the probably most gorgeous, beautiful like um, ballets you could ever see. So I like that this movie is based off of that. Like I really like that fact. And I like what Black Swan did with it, kind of all dark and twisted and stuff. So it
Mhm.
was interesting to like watch this version of it with the whole fairy tale, you're back to like the princess and the prince and stuff like that, but it's it's not it's thankfully not Thumbelina. It's not a
Yeah.
damsel in distress. Like
Mhm.
is she like super, independent, strong? Like is she like one of those like powerhouse princesses? No, but she's not weak and simple-minded. And I liked kind of just how that whole intro led into basically the only line I remember in the whole movie is what else? Like what
Yes.
else do you fucking like about me? Like I
Yeah.
liked that. That was a really bold statement to like I kind of
Mhm.
start the movie with. So
Yeah.
right off the bat, I'm like, okay, I'm into this movie. I like this.
Yeah. This was one that I did enjoy watching as a kid too. Because like you said, it's not the typical copy and paste
Mm-hmm.
situation. Of course, I like the animal aspect of it, always
Yes.
will.
Mm-hmm.
And that she wasn't just constantly a damsel in distress, and she was trying to figure out her own way out of things.
I think what this movie had going for it a bit more than the other two is that this one did feel more like they were trying to copy Disney like verbatim. You know what I mean? Like they were really trying to like follow that same path of like how they told the story, how they presented it, how the animation was, the characters, like because even her animal friends were very reminiscent of like other Disney movies that the princess has had, like these
Well,
animal friends. So like I was like,
mhm.
okay, so we're kind of on that same boat here.
So the believe it was this one. All three of these had singing and stuff.
Right, they're all
Um
musicals.
yeah, so this one actually does have a connection to Disney because the Odette singing voice is Liz Calloway, who did the singing voice for Princess Jasmine.
Oh yeah, and the second one. I think it was the second one.
Then she also yeah, for the second one, she's done like a lot of the Jasmine singing voices.
Remember we
She
were talking about in the Alex Mack when we were talking about that, and I said she was on one of the songs.
Yeah,
Did you pick up like it was the first song when she was like
yeah,
a
the first
kid? I was
song.
like,
Uh-huh.
ah, I was like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it has that extra little piece to it and everything,
Well, I mean,
but
the director is like a former Disney animator director. So
mhm.
like that makes sense that he kind of wanted to follow that same path, and he knew probably how successful Disney films could be. So he's like, well, let me try to do my own version of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think it was another bomb, but I don't know. It's weird to think like I know it took like what 4 years for this film to be made, and
Something
but
like that, yeah.
they said it had to do with like the animation style. Like they didn't use computer generated animation. Like they like hand did like all of this, and I
Mm,
really liked the the animation from it. I thought that the imaging was so crisp and pretty, and I liked how the transformation of her into the swan, it just was so pretty,
mhm.
like the colors and the sparkles, and like, oh
Gorgeous.
my God, I was like, this is, if I was a kid watching this, I would be like obsessed. Like I would probably want to be her for
Oh,
Halloween or
yeah.
whatever. You know what I mean? Like she was gorgeous. Her outfits were beautiful. Like I was hooked. I was like, I love Odette. I love the name. Like it's so different. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of Disney, this was actually pitched to Disney while he was working there.
I
but they
wonder why
rejected
they
it.
said no. You know what I mean? Like you wonder what went on behind the scenes of where they're like, nah, this ain't gonna work.
I
Like,
don't I don't know, maybe they thought it was a little too dark in that sense because I mean, especially towards the end when he's fighting the great beast or
beast.
whatever, it gets a little dark, and at that time, Disney really wasn't doing super
I mean, girl, you had The Lion King and like Scar and
but it was
Mufasa, all them dying. Like that was just
but it
horrendous. I was
wasn't like
crying.
okay, so this was a different type of dark, I feel, because this was more like in the magical dark sense where they kind of at this time had stepped away from that, I feel. Like stepped away from
Those
from
darker villains.
yeah, they kind of it, I don't know. I just feel like there was a point where Disney kind of stopped with like the magical dark villains and kind of just made it to where it was more realistic villains, I guess. Like, okay, obviously Lion King, there's it's animals, so it's not necessarily realistic in the sense of they're talking animals, but you could still in a sense see like of course lions fighting
Mm,
for power. I mean, if you watch fucking Animal Planet or anything, you easily see that or National Geographic. Whereas like this is more of a magic, like dark magic, not good magic, not
right.
like the fairy godmother magic. So I don't know, maybe that had something to do with it, or I find it very interesting because also John Cleese, who voiced John Bob, had a choice of playing Zazu or John Bob. And he chose to play John Bob because he felt the character was more interesting.
Oh. Oh, I wonder what he thought of then afterwards when it like bombed. Oh man.
I don't know. He's had a he's no, this sounds horrible, but he's not a stranger to that, but he's had
Right.
so much that it was probably one of those things where he's just like, eh, okay,
Whatever. Like whatever he felt
yeah,
more connected to. Like, in that moment, you kind of just have to
yeah,
choose what you feel like. And I probably I don't know. I don't know what I would have chosen, but I liked the aspect of like the swan, and I liked
hmm
I liked kind of that darker aspect. I didn't find it to be
hmm
that dark or violent, but I did kind of like that darker magic, and I liked the villain. Like, I mean, I didn't like him, but you know what I mean? Like, I thought he was a good villain to have. Like, he was
yeah,
just kind of like, like you love to hate him, whatever.
hmm
So,
yeah. I feel also speaking of like love to hate them, I feel like a lot of Disney ones were wanting to also kind of add like a little bit of a victim card into the villains,
mm,
where this one was just pure villain.
yeah.
Like it really wasn't, there really was no victimizing the villain in it. And so it would be it would have been interesting to have been a fly on that wall to hear the reasoning behind it. Because honestly, like I said, Swan Princess is still coming out with sequels
I wonder if
and
any of
stuff.
the sequels like did better. Did any of them make more money? You know what I mean? Like, did it? I mean, because
Hmm
they would have to if they keep are still continuing with it. Like, you wouldn't just keep on putting them out if they haven't had any type of success. Like, it's just I feel like this one's definitely more of a cult classic. Like, it turned into something that people started to love later on after it was released, more so than when it originally came out.
Yeah.
I think the only thing for me that for this movie that kind of was a letdown was that the I didn't personally like any of the songs that much. I don't know. I just
hmm
I kind of felt like the most of the songs were a bit of a dud. Like I don't know, there weren't any where I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like this is like whereas like with Troll and Thumbelina, I felt like they both had at least one song where I was like, okay, let me play that back. Like I thought it was Thumbelina the main song.
Uh-huh.
It kind of felt like the Aladdin song, like the whole new world, like that main um song that when he first meets her and then he like takes her out and they're like flying
Yeah.
around, like it was the one that he was mostly singing. It kind of almost had that vibe. And then in Troll, it was the one I think Stanley was singing. It just I think just because it had like a a naturey aspect to it. Like it just had like a
Uh-huh.
good meaning. But then Swan, the main song that they were singing, I don't know. It was just kind of like, that's it. All right. Okay.
Yeah. No, I get it. Like this, it was just that wasn't its strong suit for it.
Right. Thankfully, the story held up
Hmm.
really well because if it was like those are the songs and then the story, I'd be like, what do you got
Hmm.
going for it? Like, what are
Yeah,
we doing?
exactly. Out of the three, random question. And so neither of us have kids at this time, um, everything. But if you did have a kid, we'll say a girl, a little girl,
Hmm.
which of these three movies would you pop in to show her? If you could only pick out of these three.
Right. I mean, just based off of how I liked them, I would want them to watch Swan Princess just because I felt
Mhm,
like the characters were all very likable. They were more relatable, like there was a better storyline. Um, the prince and the princess were a bit stronger. Now the prince, the only part that I didn't like with the prince is that when the villain turned the old hag lady, whatever you want to call her, into Odette, and he saw her, he didn't really realize that it wasn't her. Like he kind of had a feeling, but then he was like, "Oh well, like it still looks like her. It still sounds like
mhm.
her. We'll just make this work." And you're kind of like, "Well, the whole point of the story is for you to like look beyond her beauty." So you're kind of like,
Yeah,
"Okay, like what like ugh." That was the only part that kind of frustrated me.
I do like the dress
Oh my God, it was
of the
so
fake
pretty.
Odette
It was so
as
pretty.
opposed to
Yes.
real Odette.
Yes, I would have
I
wanted that one to dress up
loved
in.
that one.
That's what I was
That
thinking.
dress, that dress was fire. Yeah, I'd probably go with Swan Princess also, just because it is a little bit more of a stronger female character too. Like we talked about, there wasn't, oh, he doesn't, where is he? Where is he? Somebody help me, help me. It was a lot more of her standing up for herself,
Hmm.
like constantly saying no to the villain. He's like, I'll take this curse off you, but you gotta give, like, still standing up for herself
Yes.
a lot more. And yeah, the whole what else? That
That
of
killed
course
me.
seals it.
I
Yeah.
love that. That killed me. That was great because I was kind of like, okay, where are they taking this intro? Because it was a little bit weird to kind of have this opening with this arranged type marriage, and you're like,
Hmm.
are they forcing these kids on each other? Like, what's going on? And then that whole little exchange with them, and she was like, okay, no, this is not happening.
Yeah.
And then it was like the parents were like, okay, well, it's not happening. Like they didn't really force anything. So I did like that it kind of went in that direction, but it was kind of hysterical because he was like, I don't know. What else is there?
Did you ever have people growing up where your parents were friends with them, like somebody's parents, and you were, in a sense, forced to hang out with
Ooh,
kids
that's a
or
good
other kids?
question. Not that I can remember. I feel like most of the kids that I hung out with, it's because we had something in common and I wanted
Mm,
to. And then, like, whether the parents knew each other first or whatever, I think it just kind of worked. And I didn't feel like, oh, great, I gotta hang out with so and so today.
mhm.
Yeah, I don't think I had that. Did you?
Um, we had, it wasn't necessarily like, oh great, I have to hang out with so and so. It was just there was a couple of my parents' friends that had kids similar age group. There's one set of friends that had a year younger than me and a little bit younger. And we would actually go like we did a few different like vacations with them a couple of times. And then there's a couple other of their friends, because these were like my dad had gone to school with.
Hmm.
and that we would hang out with. And yeah, I think the other set of friends, it was more they probably felt like, oh great, because I was the youngest, and so I'd always want to like tag along and everything, but not in the sense of like what was happening in this movie.
Mm,
Which, I mean, the thing is like this is kind of more of a medieval England, middle age type scenario, and that shit happened. I mean,
yeah, right, it did. But usually it was
but
like an arrangement that wasn't like forced upon anyone. It was more so like they got to know each other. The parents like wanted, there's like a difference between like an arranged marriage and like forcing people to like marry each other because of whatever reason with their
yeah,
culture or something. Like there is a difference. And I like that they portrayed it this way.
yeah, as opposed to what it used to be, which was
Hmm.
like you're marrying them
Yeah.
for whether you like them or not, kind of thing,
Yes.
and you can either choose to grow to like them or you can suffer, but you're marrying them. So that's, yeah.
Which of the like magical powers that we saw would you wanted to have? Like, would you want like the great beast powers where you can like basically, I guess, shapeshift? Then you have the trolls where they're able to kind of like, well, I mean, you could turn people into trolls, but then you had like the green thumb. I don't really know like all the specifics on that. And then Thumbelina, I don't know what we really had in that one besides the witch like creating this little girl out of a flower. I don't know what were there weren't really any magical power. I mean, I guess well, you could be a
Well,
fairy. Yeah, I guess you could
the
be a fairy.
fairies with like they're changing the seasons and stuff like that.
Which one do you feel like you would want?
I'd probably want either the villain in Swan Princess or Stanley's Green Thumb.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards the green thumb. I think we need more of that with how much
Mm-hmm.
the world is changing. Like that would be a
Mm-hmm.
pretty badass power to be able to
Mm-hmm.
just like, okay, we need a little bit of greenery there. All right, a little bit
Yeah.
there. Like that's kind
Oh
of
yeah.
cool. Like that's really
I
different.
and that was one thing I did like about that movie too, was it kind of, I mean, that was 1994 and it was already kind of like showing how important it was to have that. And
Kind of like Fern Gully almost, there was almost
yeah,
that environmental type aspect.
yeah. So, yeah, like I said, I mean, because like the ability to like change stuff like that would be cool, like for the Great Beast. But I think Green Thumb, because
Yeah.
they won't have to worry about going and buying all of the vegetables that you would need. You could just get
Ooh.
them to grow.
Ooh. Okay. And then how would you want to be a swan, a troll, or a fairy?
Swans have always been very gorgeous to me.
Yeah. Because you could
Uh,
fly,
you can
you could be so
fly.
you can go be on land or you can be in the water.
Yeah.
You can like chase people away.
Have you, so swans, a big thing with me for swans also is their ability to show like love also,
Hmm.
right? They mate for life.
Hmm.
And it is very common. It's very sad. It is very common that if one swan, like if it's a pairing, if one dies for or something, the other usually isn't too far behind
Right.
from
Yeah.
heartbreak.
Hmm. Which movie is your favorite as far as the music goes? Which one do you think had the best music?
Considering I didn't get to hear a lot of the Thumbelina ones, I don't know. There is like I probably have to go with fuck. I'll be completely honest with you. The music in all of them was kind of subpar, I feel. If I absolutely had to pick, I'd probably go with Troll,
Okay.
just because I feel it was a little bit, I don't know. I like that one a little bit more in that sense. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think the music was hard for all of the movies. Like
Mm,
it's not at all like if you think of any of the Disney ones where like almost all of them you can sing by heart. Like they're like, oh yeah, that one and
hmm
then that one, and you can name all the songs. But I think there was like one song in Thumbelina that I liked to where it
Mhm.
made me feel like that one I would listen to more so than any of the other ones. I already kind of talked about that, so probably that one. But yeah, they were all kind of. I would have liked to have almost seen these movies without the music because it's almost like
Mhm.
most of them didn't really need the song aspects. Like it just, I don't know. I didn't feel like they added anything. You know what I mean? Like there really
Yeah.
wasn't much that they did for the movie that they couldn't have just said. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And what's your final ranking? We gotta rank these. Gotta let them know how you rank.
Probably troll, swan, Thumbelina.
Mine's, I think I'm gonna have to say Swan, Troll, and then Thumbelina. It's very close. And I'm
I'm like
honestly
I'm like
like,
waiting to see which one you I had I knew Swan was gonna be first for you, but I was waiting to see which way you went with the other two.
honestly, going into this, it was gonna be Thumbelina and then Troll, but just like us talking about it and you pointing out some things, I do think that the fact that Troll is so different and it's not the typical fairy tale love story, I think that kind of is making me, you know what? It's different. I liked it a bit
Hmm.
more. It was a little bit more redeeming than Thumbelina, so I'm gonna have to, yeah, Thumbelina can just get
Yeah.
out of
Well,
here.
I mean, Troll really wasn't even a love story in that sense.
No, yeah.
It was more of just a
Just a
story. It
fun
didn't,
kids
yeah.
adventure movie almost.
It and sometimes you just have to have that because not everything needs to be a love story. Like
Yeah.
there doesn't need to be a love interest. There doesn't need to be like constant love story. It's nice to just have a story. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's an adventure.
Yeah.
It's two little kids going on an adventure with the troll that they found. I mean, yeah, it's
I think if I were to see any of these being remade, I think it would be interesting to see what they did with Troll. You know what I mean? I think that would be an interesting one to kind of see what they
mhm,
could do with it now to kind of make it to where it would resonate with people today. You know what I mean? Like I
yeah.
think that one would be an interesting because the other two we've heard, those stories have been told so many times, but like I don't feel like we've seen much with trolls. Like there really aren't any troll movies.
Not really, not in that sense. Like we're talking about, like most of the trolls that we see in movies or stuff are always a lot of times like the evil
Yeah.
aspect, or just plain side characters in general. And so I no, I would be very interesting to see how that would go if they ever did decide to remake it or even do like a live action.
Oh
So
God. Whoa.
what that would be so which would you out of
Hmm.
these three, which do you think would make the most in a box office for a remake with a live action?
Oh man. That's tough. Like I troll would be interesting, but you're kind of thinking like the troll would obviously have to be like a CGI, kind of like the turtles.
Hmm,
You know, I don't know, like would it would you wouldn't want someone dressed in like a troll outfit, like or made up like the Cats movie as someone like that would just be weird.
well,
Like I don't know.
so I mean they could because there is a there with Stanley at least, he is a little bit more human looking than like Ganora.
I mean, they did a live Little Mermaid, and you have Ursula who was, you know, so I mean, like I guess it could be
Yeah.
done in some
In
respect.
s- in some ways, but like I mean it would be yeah, it would they I think that one would be interesting.
It would be
I'd have to,
interesting.
but
I don't
I'd
know if it would make
probably
the most, but I think it would be
no.
like kind of cool to see what they could do with it.
Hmm.
I feel like Swan Princess would probably make the most just because it's such a beloved like story. I don't know. I feel
Hmm.
like it could resonate with more people because of the realism of it. I think that one would be pretty cool with like the villain aspect and
Yeah.
yeah, I think that one's just so it's pretty and it's
Hmm.
so
I mean, but that one would have to have some CGI shit too. So, like, I mean, they're not
well,
gonna have
yeah.
just a real swan. Real swans can't make English words come out.
Yeah, but they have a really good like animal CGI now, so I think
Mm,
that could work very well.
yeah.
Um, but yeah. So if you all want to go watch these, Thumbelina and Troll is on YouTube, and the Swan Princess you do have to like buy or rent. But thankfully, like out of all of them, I was okay with that because it's one of the better done ones. So
Yeah.
it's worth a couple dollar investment to see that one. Um, but I mean, this was kind of fun because, like I said, I've never really seen any of these. So it's always interesting to see new things from your childhood that you missed.
Mhm.
And it was fun kind of getting your perspective on like your memories from it because it's so wild that you have seen all of them and I saw none. Like it just it blows my mind. I'm like, what the hell world was I living in? That's so funny.
I don't know.
Oh.
I truly don't know. All right, folks. Well, let us know if you've seen these, and if you have, which is your favorite, what your ranking for these are, and let us know on Instagram. You can choose an email and or write a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. And until next time, peace out.
Bye.